everyone, welcome to section 2 of the Penny's Lane workshop, lesson 2, tutorial 2, however you want to call it. This is what we got done last night. We got the our frame and our box stained without using stain. We used our paint. We got our slip slap background on. We traced our pattern onto tracing paper, the details that we'll need after our base coating, and we got our bunny base coated and shaded. So this is where we ended last night. So we're going to go ahead and start where we left off. I did, the ladies that are in the group that did pay for this tutorial, you got an email today with some updated instructions, so be sure and check your email for that. Let me get us pulled up over here. And the internet's been running a little slow today, so fingers crossed that we can get into everything and sail along. We spent, what, 15, 20 minutes trying to get everything going last night. All right, there we go. I think we're in business. Say hi when you come on. Hi, Sherry. Hello, hello. I am Pam Savage, owner of Young at Heart Creations. Typically, we were going to do this on a private page in a private group, but Mr. FB was not cooperating, and we had to go ahead and do it on this page. But only the ones that paid for the workshop have the instructions, have their kits, have their patterns, their color palette list, and their name will be put in a drawing for tomorrow. We'll be doing it from about noon to 2-ish. Tomorrow we'll do a drawing to see who wins the new set of fall Dippin' Dotties that will come out on June the 26th. We'll have that sale on June the 26th here on this page, and we'll go into details at that time. But we have a pumpkin, a little ghost, and a witch's hat. So you could, I guess you could paint the hat on him. I don't know, but we did a demonstration the other day. There is a video on here, so just go down below a couple of videos and you'll see the quick demonstration on that. Okay, so we're gonna get started. You're gonna need white paint first. We're gonna work on this bunny a little bit. You can use a, let me grab one of these other brushes over here. I'm gonna use, I like to use a makeup brush. It's called Wet n Wild, and it's just an eye makeup brush that will get at Dollar Tree, or you can order them on Facebook, Amazon, and get them. But I like to use those. They come in different sizes. Let me pull you down just a little bit. But they come in different sizes. I like to use those for my dry brushing. You can also use a stencil brush, just whatever you've got, just some kind of old brush. We're not going to put any water on it, so don't get it wet. We're going to dry brush some highlights on. So I'm going to get, and I'm going to bring you down here. I was painting earlier, so I've got some white already on my palette that I think is still wet enough. Yeah. So I've got it on the tip here, and I'm going to work it in. I want it to really be worked in there. But then I've got a paper towel over here, and I'm going to get most of that paint off. And we're going to dry brush the ear, the top of that ear, and you want to make sure that most of that paint is off. Remember, we don't have any liquid on, and I'm just doing some kind of circular motions. We're going to go around here and do the other ear. It's not going to show much because we're going to have some pink on it. I'm going to do the front part of the face. And you should be able to see just a soft white glow highlight. So I'm going to do the front of his belly, or her belly. We're going to do the other arm, or the arm. I think we've done an arm. And once that white dries, it kind of fades in, so you might want to go over it again. So we are just, I'm going to go down about the center of the leg and the top of the foot or feet. And I don't want a lot of paint coming off. It's just dry paint, barely any on there. I'm going to go to the front part of her back leg, the one that's behind her belly. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this on camera, but it gives it a really nice little highlight. And let's see if you can see some of that. So again, I barely have any paint on there now. You can just barely see any. And it just is very, very dry, almost to a powder. And I just did some circular motions in those spots that I want highlighted in the center of his hand. And I may say he all night long. I don't know if it's a he or a she. I really don't know. And just anywhere you think there needs to be a highlight there. Doesn't really matter on that ear because we're going to have some pink in it. Okay, so there's our highlights. And I'm finished with that brush. And it's a plastic handle, so I'm just going to dump it in my water. If it's a wooden handle, I'm going to wash it out and just lay it there. I don't want it soaking in the water. Okay, so let's go ahead now and let's line. Let's see how I have this. I'm going to mark them off as I go. Okay, so we dry brush the front ear, forehead, tummy, foot area, legs, and hand in white. And we, okay, so now we're going to do the cheek. And let's see where, okay, yep, we're going to do you can do coral, you can do, I've got bubblegum pink is what I'm going to use. And I'm going to use a little bit smaller brush than what I just used. It's not going to take much. And we're going to dry brush some pink for the cheek. And I've got a little bit smaller brush here. Same kind of brush, same bristles. It's a Wet n Wild makeup brush. So no water on it. I'm going to get that work down in there. And then I'm going to come over on my paper towel and get most of it off. And I'm going to where that cheek needs to go. So the mouth is going to come right down here. And it may be easier for you if you want to go ahead and trace that pattern on. We can certainly do that so that you know where the cheek is going to go. So just lay that tracing paper that you traced your pattern on, and that'll tell you about where that needs to go. So I'm going to put my brush right under here, and I know that my cheek needs to go right about there. And just in a circular motion. Okay. And there's our cheek. And now let's do the inside of this ear. All right, I'm going to need to get a little more paint. And I'm going to get it off on the side of my hand here. I don't care if this one's got a little bit more on it. And we're just going to go right up the center. And we may, if we need to take our hand or our finger and kind of help it a little bit. By just kind of rubbing it around. Okay, and then just kind of smooth it out. And you can also just paint this on if you want to. And I'm just going to do a little dry brushing. I may go back in and do a little more. But again, you can use a lighter pink. You can use coral. We're just going right over that white. And that's going to be the inside of his ear. And you can look at it as you work on it. Do I need it to be wider? Do I need it to be thicker? If it's dry enough that I can just take my finger and rub right over it. And I can come back and even add a little bit of white if I want to highlight it some more after it's good and dry. Kind of round it off down at the bottom. Okay, so that's good enough for now. If I want to go back in and play around with it, I can. Okay, so let's go on the top of that cheek. Let me go ahead and get this paint off of me. And we just started right in with this so that we wouldn't run out of time tonight. Hi, Margarita. Hi, Sybil. Hello. We've got Miss Sherry on there. So that's what we've got so far. So I'm going to take one of my Dippin' Dotties. Let's see which one I can grab. And with the end of it, now you can use the end of your paintbrush if it's small enough, or a stylus. And I'm going to put 3 dots. One kind of like a triangle, 2 and 3, just as a little cheek highlight. And then I'm going to wipe that off. Okay, and let's get those dry. Those are not very deep at all, so they should be able to dry real easy. Just want to make sure they're good and dry before we do anything else on it. Okay, and you can do this 2 different ways. You can just freehand the stitching on. That's what we're going to do next with the deep ochre. Get some of that out. And a small lining brush. So you just need a small liner brush. And it won't take a lot. It won't take much at all of that deep ochre. So I've just got a little spot here. And I'm going to use my my little bitty liner, but you can use a round or any liner that is going to give you a small stitch. But so you can just freehand it on by looking at your pattern, or now if I wanted to lay this over it and try to figure out where it goes, where I need to put the eyes, I can't see through it. So it's going to be really hard to match it up because I can't tell where the pattern is underneath. But since we traced it on tracing paper, see how thin it is? You can see right through it. We can lay our pattern over it. Oops, I was on the wrong side there. Get it just right. And then hold it tight so it doesn't move. On that face, stick your graphite paper underneath and making sure you're holding that pattern in place. And we're going to trace on the eyes. Now, if you've been painting for a long time, or you've painted this pattern before, and you're just comfortable freehanding it, you can certainly do that. Okay, so we're going to put the nose, the little heart. And if you want to, you can go ahead and get, or put the little marks, the stitches. You can trace those on. Okay, I'm going to just freehand the rest of it. But there, now I can tell where that face needs to go. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the stitching done in that deep ochre. And when I'm lining, I like to add just a little bit of, I've got a little bit of water on the end of my brush. And I'm just thinning it out just a little bit. Okay, wash it off, come back in here, and just on the tip. You'll have to reload a few times. And once you do these a while, you'll get to where you can just do it without having to, little things like this, without having to put the pattern on. But to help you be more precise, you can certainly do that. And I'm going to go up a little bit further with my mouth because I put my cheek a little high. And then we'll do our little smile line. Okay, now the ear is just right down the center of it with a little bit of curve where the ear curves. Okay, so I'm going to go kind of out and then back in. And then you're going to curve out okay, so just right down the middle of that ear. Okay, and then we're going to go under the ear to look like the stitching is underneath that ear on this arm. And let's start up. And again, you can use the pattern. I'm just going to guesstimate it, and then I'm going to come way off to the right with it. But you've got your pattern if you want to do it with the pattern. Okay, and then we need to do, let's do the hand. And the hand kind of curves out to the left in the center. Now you could do your stitching any color you wanted to. I just did it the same color that it's shaded in. now we need to go to the belly, and we're just barely off of the front of the belly. We'll start out in the center of the neck. And I've got a picture that I'm looking at too over here, and I've got my pattern. And just down, down. Kind of curve it out with that belly. And then start curving back in. And go down to about, not quite the bottom of the leg. And some of my stitches are longer than the others. I'm not getting them all perfect. Okay, now on this leg, we're going to come down from the top of the leg. Now in this one, I noticed I've got the ear kind of coming over the leg, and the one I painted before, I've got the leg kind of coming over the ear. So let's see how your pattern is. So your pattern is like this. The hand is coming, the arm and hand's coming over it just a little bit. So we're going to kind of curve with the leg. And then start curving back in and reload. Okay, and stop just about where that curve is in the foot. And then on the foot, we're going to start just about, almost, not quite to the back. And then we're just going to curve it out and come down to the bottom. Now this will be easier for you doing it on your own because you can move it around like you want to. Put it in your lap if you want to. And we're going to go right down on the inside of that other leg that's behind his belly. And we're just going to curve it down towards the top of this foot. Okay, and I'm going right to that foot, so it looks like the rest of the stitching is behind this foot, which is how it would be. Okay, now then on the other foot, we're going to start about right here in the middle of where it curves down. Right here and go out just like we did on this one all the way to the bottom. And then curve back. Okay, and that's your stitching. So super, super easy to do, but it sure adds a lot to it. And I'm going to have, I can see as this is drying, I'm going to work on that just a little bit later, but I'm not going to take the time to kind of go over it now. And you know where it goes, where that pink goes. Okay, we already dotted our cheeks. We kind of got ahead of ourselves, or I did. We got our eyes on, traced on already. So now we need some black to do those, paint those eyes in. So let's get just a little bit of black. It's not going to take much, and I'm going to use my liner brush. Probably. I guess that's where I'll put my black, since that's where it dropped out. Had a drop of it come out. Yes, you can do the cheek after you do the eyes and stitching. Yes, ma'am. That is just fine. The only thing is, if you want your smile line to come up into the cheek, You can go over that little smile line, and when I say smile line, I mean the little curve right here at the bottom of the cheek. Make it look kind of like a smile. You can go over it with that pink or coral, whatever you're using, and then you would just need to go back over your stitching or your smile line because it'll get pink on it. But yes, ma'am, you sure can. Yay, Vicki, I'm glad you did. Hi, Debbie. Okay, good deal. All right, so next we're going to paint the eyes. So I've got the black, and I'm going to try with my little liner brush here. So just use the smallest round or the smallest little liner brush that you have, and I'm going to outline the eyes, and then I'll fill it in. Let me see if I can kind of do this upside down. And I use my little finger to kind of steady my hand. And you can also just make like a number 6 facing opposite directions and fill it in and not have the wide tops on these. I'm just going like the pattern was. Mr. Pam had to work late again tonight, so he'll be coming in here in a little bit. Okay, so now I'm just going to fill those in. I forgot to turn the air conditioner down. It is warm in here. And I just moved my brush and got some paint outside there. But I think I can make it an eyelash. So bear with me just a minute. I'm going to turn my ceiling fan on because it is getting really warm under these lights. Get some air going. Or I can let that dry a minute and then I can put some yellow over it. Okay, so I'm just filling them in. And again, when you're doing this live and you're doing it upside down and trying to do it so that the camera can see it, you're going to have some oopsies. So just know when you're painting yours by yourself at your own pace, you won't have the issues. Okay, let me see if I can fix this one. Without having to paint over it. That one needs to be a little rounder. Okay, and then we're going to do the nose. Now the pattern had the nose black, but you could do it red to match this heart, or pink, whatever color you want to do it. Okay, now I'm just filling it in. We'll dry that really well and then put our highlights on it. Okay, let's do some eyelashes. Let's see. Well, this one really doesn't have eyelashes. Sometimes I go ahead and put eyelashes anyway, but this one doesn't have eyelashes, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to touch that little black spot up. And a spot that I missed with the black. Okay, now we need to put the highlight lines on the eyes, the dots in the highlight lines. So again, I'm going to use my Dippin' Dotty. You can use the end of your brush or whatever you have that you make dots with. And we're going to put the dots not quite in the center, a little more over to the left, like it's looking ahead. And then we will make a line on the right-hand side of each eye. And that makes it look like it's looking in front of it. And if we want to do a couple of little highlights on the nose. You can also, with the deep ochre, put some, if you wanted to put eyebrows up there, you could certainly do that too. Okay, so that is pretty much our bunny. Mark that one off. Okay, next, with the heart that the bunny's holding, we're going to base coat that in white. So just get either a small angle brush or a flat brush, or you can even do it with a round brush, whatever you're most comfortable with. Sorry, Darla, Facebook was giving us some problems, so I had to go live on my regular page. It would not let me save it on the other page, and some people were not able to see it when I was live in that one. So I'm live on my Young at Hearts page, and I sent everybody, I put a notification on that page to tell you to go to this page. Yes, it was giving us fits, and we could not get it to cooperate. So let me see if I can get enough of this paint that I had out earlier, and I think it's going to be good. So we're just going to put, just like we base coated our rabbit, we're going to base coat that heart. And you can also, if you want to base coat all the little hearts white, you can. I didn't put that on your list. They're so small. I don't think it'll really matter much. But go right up to that ear, because the heart comes over the ear. Kind of smooth it out a little bit. So just right up where the heart curves. And then just fill it in down at the bottom and the side. You just want to make sure there's no blue showing. So, with the problems Mr. Facebook was giving me, I had two choices, Darla. I could either just cancel the workshop or just go with the flow and do it on this page. So that's what I chose to do, because you guys that paid are the only ones that received the kits, the instructions, and the color chart. And your names are the only ones that were put on the wheel of names that we will spin for a winner tomorrow to get a set of the new Dippin' Dotty design. So everybody on this page can see it, see the tutorials, but they don't have the patterns or anything. So we're glad to have everybody. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do. It was working a few weeks ago just fine, so I didn't change anything, so I have no idea why it would not cooperate. But here we are. I've heard that, Vicki, that others are having a lot of problems on their lives. Ones that have been doing it a whole lot longer than I have and that are very technically savvy, which I am not. They are also having issues, and it is no fun. But I'm having fun. I hope you are. Okay, so we got that heart base coated. Let's dry it. And then we're going to take our Tuscan red. And we're just going to put just a little bit out, just enough to do this heart. We'll do the other hearts a little later on. So just a dollop. Just a dollop will do you. What commercial was that? Sour cream or something? Just a dollop of daisy. We'll do it. So Tuscan red. And I'm going to use that same brush that I was just using. That little angle brush, but again, you can use a flat brush, whatever you're most comfortable with. Now it's going to look pink at first, going over that white until we get our second coat on. But once we get that second coat on, it'll look like the red that it's supposed to. Going just right up to that white. See how pinky it looks? Curve right around with that belly. And this wood does have a little bit of a grain in it, so sometimes you do have to go back and forth to get it to fill in. Now, if you're not comfortable getting down in that little bitty crevice in there, take a little liner brush or a round brush and fill it in down there. I'm just kind of standing mine up on the edge. Okay, I'm gonna add just a tad of water to my brush. That paint's not flowing the way I wanted it to. It's a little dry. Okay, and that hand is round, so make sure you round it off. All right, get the rest of that on, then we'll dry it and put the second coat on it. Did everybody do their homework last night and finish out your bunny base coating and shading? Okay, let's dry it and put that second coat on. Oh, good, Darla. The Brill Cream commercial said a little dab will do you. Okay, I couldn't remember what it was. I think the Dollop Daisy was sour cream, though. Got a little piece of wood fuzz or something in there. What a difference a second coat makes. Red is also good. An undercoat for red is coral. Coral makes it cover really pretty. And sometimes a light gray will do also. But this Tuscan red has such a good coverage anyway that white will do okay too. But other reds, you definitely want a good undercoat on it. Okay, so I'm going to get this edge over here. Okay, so there's the heart base coat. So it's base coated, painted. Now we're going to take some of that burnt umber. You can also use black. The pattern calls for burnt umber, so I'm just going with the pattern. Just a tiny bit, that's probably too much there. But I'm just going to leave that red in my brush. I'm going to dip it just a tad in water and then clean it off. going to add some of that with that red still on there. And we're going to, let's see, let's shade by his tummy first. Get down in that crevice. And now remember, it's going to be darker when it dries. So I'm going to dry that so that I don't wipe it off when I go into the other areas. And I just reloaded my brush. Okay, I'm going to come up here to the top. I'm going to reload my brush. I've still got a little bit of water in my brush, so I'm not having to dip it back in the water. And then I'm going to come right back on this side. Now, if your paint color is dragging, I mean, if it's not floating out like you want it to, this is called floating. If the color is lighter than your base coat color, then it's highlighting. If it's darker, it's called shading. But the actual technique is called floating. So when you hear somebody say float this or float that color, it's just what most of us say, shade. Okay, that's dry, so I'm going to go back over it just a little bit because I want that a little bit darker against his belly and down in that crevice. Okay, I'm going to wash that brush out, and then with my liner brush, we're going to float some highlights. Now I just realized I really didn't need to shade the top of that heart. Really just needed to do down in the crevice, the little V down in the crevice. So I'm going to tone that down just a little bit. Just wasn't thinking. So I'm going to go back over it a little with some red to tone mine down. It's okay either way. But I'm just going to tone that top shade down just a little. I'm going to dry it and go back over it again. So you'll just barely be able to tell that there's any shading there on the top. And again, it really wouldn't matter either way. Okay, so it's lighter now. Except for at the bottom, you want to just leave it alone. But see how quickly we fix that little oops. Still got a little shading at the top, but not near like it is down in the bottom, down in that crevice. And then we're going to put some little white highlight lines there. With your liner brush or your smallest round. So let's go. I think my white is still wet enough. And we're just going to do a little hump. Whoop. And whoop. Okay, so there's that heart. Next color you're going to need is the khaki, or khaki tan, and we're going to base coat the sign. And I'm just going to use that same little angle brush. And okay, the khaki tan is this color. Now, if you don't have khaki tan, you could use pebble, just any kind of a light tan color. We're also going to use this on the little road or the little path. So I'm putting out about the size of a dime. Making sure I got all the red out of that. Okay, we're going to base coat the sign and the post. And I think you could base coat it in white if you wanted to, but I think I'm just going to put a couple of coats or so of this khaki tan, because I don't care if it's a little dark, it's supposed to look like wood. And we'll come back in and do some grain work on it. Shading seems to be a problem for me. It always looks like it's just a thick border. I seem to never be able to soften it up. Any suggestions? Yes, if it looks like a border, you're not getting enough water, and you don't want to get too much water on it. But I would say it is easier if, let me try it here with a little, if I've got a flat brush over here somewhere. Let me grab it and I'll show you. All right, let's use this flat brush. It is easier for some people if you and I'm just going to do this on a piece of paper or a piece of cardboard. If I've got some down here, I think I do. All right, here's a piece of cardboard. Let's try it on this. So I put my paintbrush in water, but I'm going to kind of dab it off. So let's do this khaki tan. And we're just going to make a square across here, just so for demonstration purposes. Okay, so I'm just base coating right now to give us something to shade on. Let's try it. Let me put another coat right quick. Because there's 3 or 4 different ways that you can shade. And I used to always shade with a flat brush, but I've gotten more comfortable using an angle brush. Some people shade with the filbert, the oval brush. Okay, that's dry enough. Okay, so I've still got some of this khaki on here, the base coat color. I'm going to dip my brush in water just a little bit. Well, let's go ahead and get the burnt umber on. We're going to use burnt umber to shade with. So I'm doing just the corner of that, and then I'm going to add I'm just going to dip that corner down into the water, and then I'm going to run it back and forth. And if that's dark enough that I want, then I'll just leave it, but I want it a little bit darker. So I've got just a little bit of water in there, and I'm really pressing down. Pressing down helps it to shade. Now see that faded out? Look, that's what I want. So then I'm going to come across over here. Make sure which side I had it on. And having that base coat color on there already. Trying to make it a little darker so you can see it. And I got out of line there. But having that base coat color and adding a little bit of water, I mean, just barely touching it to it. See how I'm really pressing down? And that gives you that faded out look. So I would say really practice on something like this. Cardboard, multimedia book. Now I've got my angle brush, and I can do it this way. I can take a little bit of water on that brush, and where I'm going to shade or float, but this is shading because it's darker, I'm going to add a little bit of water. I don't want it just drippy wet. I just want it moist. And then I'm just going to dip straight in with the corner. No base coat color, but you could do it with the base coat color. That just kind of helps it fade out a little bit. And I'm just going to go in with that straight. I've got it just on the tip, on the toe, and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm really going to press down. Now this is a smaller brush, so I'm getting a smaller fade. But what I can do when it dries, I can come back right where that stops and just kind of what we call walk it out and blend it in. Okay, so I hope that helps a little bit. I've never shaded or floated with the oval brush, the filbert, so I can't tell you what that does, but I do know some do. Okay, let me get that burnt umber out of there and go back to my little angle brush. Well, believe me, Debbie, it is not, it's one of the hardest things to learn, but once it's an aha moment when you do, after a lot of practice. Let me tell you, there were lots of tears before I finally got the hang of it. And trying it several different ways helped me also, because there's a way I like better than the others. But for some, it's easier, you know, to do it the other way. But I will tell you, it's just practice, practice, and water. Not having too much water, having enough water, and really pressing down when you're doing it will help that to float across there, across your brush. Okay, now I'm going to come just to the tips of the sign, and then I'm going to take a little liner or round brush and get right in those tips. If you did a bunny in fawn or even light mocha, would the mess up the color scheme of the rest of the painting? No, you could certainly do it in that and shade it with burnt umber or whatever color you wanted to. This is the color that Mary Dowell, Darrow, I wasn't pronouncing her name right, but this is her bunny. She's the designer of this. She is no longer with us. But hers looks like it's in a light, kind of a light tan, and then just shaded with either dark chocolate or burnt umber. The board and frame I did get off of Amazon. Yes, I sure did. I can't remember how much they were. But Debbie, I have done that many times. I have sanded something down if it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and that's the beauty of it being just paint. What is it that you don't like about it? Believe me, there's many things that I still sometimes think, oh, that didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. Like tonight, trying to do this upside down and backwards and everything. I like the first one, the little face that I did on the first one a little bit better. But he's going to be cute. You also need to be thinking about what you want to, your sign to say. The first one I painted says, Grammy's house, half a mile. But you could have it say anything about Aunt or Nana or donuts a nickel 5 miles ahead or whatever you want it to say. Okay, I'm going to go around that hand. And I decided to just go ahead and stand my brush up on the chisel edge. That means standing it straight up, and do these cutouts on the sign. Thought I might have to get in a liner brush and do it, but I don't care if they're a little bit wider. So I'm just making some triangles and then just filling it in. Trying to make sure that I cover my graphite paper lines. And it's definitely going to take 2 coats. Okay, so there's first coat on the sign, and then we're going to have to do the post. Okay, I got it dry enough so that I'm not running my hand over it. So I think that'll be fine to put another coat on. When we get ready to put the words on here, you can use a liner brush, a small liner brush, or a paint pen, whichever you're more comfortable using. Just like the tea kettle that I was painting on here a couple of nights ago, or days ago. I don't remember if I did it during the day or not, but I ended up doing a completely different pattern than what our design, than what I had intended on putting on it. I was going to do bees and sunflowers only, big sunflowers and bees, but I ended up doing a beehive, and I'm looking at it and I'm not crazy about the beehive, but it all came together in the end. That old trust the process thing. Okay, so see how I'm just standing it straight up, because I've got a pretty good chisel edge on this brush. And I'm just doing triangle, triangle, and then just filling it in. And then just smoothing my paint out. Okay, and while that's drying, we'll come down here and do the post. All right, let me mark off what we've done so far. I'm just putting a little check mark beside them. And we're going to come around with that burnt umber and do some shading on it. I'm going to grab one of my round brushes. It's a grabby number 4. Just any round brush to do this, the post. Okay, so your base color is Sea Glass, and then you've got Hauser. Okay, Sea Glass, try the Hauser medium green and see if you like that a little better. Is it the color, 2 colors that you're not liking, or just the shading in general? Oh, you feel like the shading color is too dark and all of my other greens are way too dark. I have his hand, the heart, more round than oval. That's okay. Mine is a little more round too than it is oval. But now on the greens, as far as your shading, if you want to hold off and go back in and do that shading, I would suggest that you do some colors on something scrap. Just get you some colors together. For the greenery, we're going to be using, you said your bunny is Sea Glass green, and I don't have any of that color. But you might want to do him in the light Hauser green and then shade him with the medium green. But that's what I would suggest you do, is go on a piece of paper or cardboard or something, poster board, and put some colors together and see what they look like for you. Sometimes they look a little different on the project than they do in the bottles. Okay, so I've got my round brush, and I'm going to outline that post and then fill it in. And I don't mind if I get a little bit on the wagon handle because I'm going to go right over it with black, but I am going to come up around the leaf, the flower leaf. And this is where you could just paint over it, and if you traced the pattern on the tracing paper, you could lay it back over and redo that flower leaf. And don't worry about getting it real even at the bottom of the post, because we're going to come over that with a little bit of road. It doesn't have to be perfectly even at the bottom, but you also can. So if you want to get it even, just come right across the bottom of it. Okay, let's dry it. Put a second. Whoops, I got to do the top part. Sorry. And we're using the same color as in the sign, so it's okay if we go up into the sign some. Now I know I may be moving a little fast for some of you that are painting. Honestly, it's very fast for me. I am a slow painter, and I'm usually like this, taking my time and going over it carefully. But Facebook kind of frowns if you go over 2 hours on your lives. So I try to keep it at 2 hours. But at the same time, you want to get finished. So it's a nerve-wracking thing that is constantly in your head when you're doing something like this. You're going, okay, I need to watch my time, but I also don't want to rush my sweet painters. I don't like painting fast. I don't do well when I go to events painting quickly. A lot of times I'll just paint like 1 or 2 projects because I like to visit and I don't like being rushed, and then I'll just finish the projects at home. But I want to go for the fellowship and being with everybody. Okay, so you want to make sure that right above that leaf and right below that leaf, like right here, I've got the post a little bit fatter and it's kind of skinnier here. So, but I want those to connect down at the end. Like the post is all one size. So I'm going to make this a little bit wider down here to make it look a little more symmetrical. There we go. Okay, so that's enough base coat on that. Let's shade it with our burnt umber. So I'm going to go back with my little angle brush. Well, don't give up on the shading. Once you learn it, you won't do a piece without it. It is fun and it just takes practice. And I will probably do a live here soon, maybe even next week, on just different ways to shade, just kind of like what I showed you, just on scrap paper. So I'm just putting a little bit of moisture. This is another way to shade. Just get a little bit of moisture. You don't want it just dripping wet. Just enough so that paint will go across it. Let it dry just a minute. I've still got a little bit of water in my brush, so I'm going to come into that burnt umber. You can go straight to your piece, or if you want to kind of blend it a little bit, you can also do that. A lot of times if I've got water on it, on my piece, I will just go straight into it. Okay, and as I'm going into that little pointed part, I'm raising up on my brush. I'm coming up onto the chisel edge. Okay, dipping my brush back into the water and then just dabbing it off on my wet cloth or paper towel, whichever you want to do. And I'm going to come a little bit too much water. So I dabbed it off a little bit. And let's come and do the top of each little jagged part of the sign. So we're just going to do some making it a little bit darker. Okay, there's a little bitty one there. And you can come out into the sign also. And by that, I mean just come back a little bit into the sign. To make it look more like pieces of wood. Planks. If it's not dark enough at first, remember, let it dry and then go back over it. Okay, so I got the top parts of those done. Now I'm going to come back in and do the bottom parts. If I did them at the same time before they dried, I'd just wipe off what I was doing. Mr. Pam just walked in and he got Cracker Barrel for supper. If y'all have not eaten at Cracker Barrel, during the summer they put out I'm going to get a little bit of water back on these. It's called their campfire. Well, they've got campfire chicken and campfire roast dinners. They are so good. They bring them out in a big foil. It's just aluminum foil, and that's what they've cooked them in. And they are They have corn, two pieces of corn on the cob, potatoes, carrots, onions. I'm not sure what else in there, but they also have the greatest, now see, I had too much paint on that one. I didn't blend it out good enough. But the juice that the roast and chicken are both in, oh, they're so good. It just tastes wonderful. And the meat has been so tender every time. So I kind of splurge a little bit. Maybe once a week, because it goes away after summer. So tonight was a good night since I was doing this. Okay, so I'm just going on the bottom. Adding a little more paint. Just kind of coming right out into that. I don't want to go all the way to the center. And you can come back in if you've got too much and it makes it look too brown for you. You can come back in with some of that khaki color and lighten it back up. Okay, now I want to go across the bottom. So I've got a little bit of that burnt umber. I'm going to just barely dip it into the water and just tap it off a little bit and go all the way across. And remember, this is an old wooden sign, so it's supposed to look a little old and raggedy. Okay, we want to come right up in between his ear and his arm. If I put it on my dish and I see that it's got too much water, or on my paint palette, then I kind of wipe it off a little bit and then just dip it back in there. Now that's what I want. Just curve around. And back up the other side. Once you get this done, you're going to be so proud of yourself. This is not an easy pattern. I mean, there's lots of little crevices and little bitty spaces to shade in and fill in. But you're going to be so proud of yourself once you do it. Okay, so now we're going to do the post. Right up the sides. And if you're not comfortable shading, you can always line. Use a liner and line it. It won't give exactly the same effect, but it'll do okay. Okay, and I'm going to go under the sign just a little bit. I mean, the top of this post. Look at the difference in the side that's not shaded and the side that is shaded. It just adds so much more character to it. Okay, I'm just adding a little bit of water. And if you want a wider shade, again, you will just let that dry and then come back in over it just a little bit lower, right where it stops, and just widen it out a little bit. Okay, let's go ahead and do the bottom. Now we're going to take the liner brush or your little round brush. And let's go in with some of that white. And we'll just make some little marks on it. We're going to do the same thing with some of this burnt umber. Not many, just something to highlight it. And of course, you're going to go up and down on the post. Now let's go into the burnt umber. Mine's just about dried out. And where those crevices are, or where the board is kind of jagged, just come in here and make some lines. Just to darken it up a little bit. And then let's put some, let me add some water to that. It's just about dried out. Make sure you mix it up good. You don't want it just water. Just to give it a little wood grain. I'm just barely touching it. I'm just going to pat it. And that's it on that. Oh, I don't get to go to PC Live this year. Oh, PC Live, the one at her home. Yes, Sheila, I am. I ain't slower, but you meant you paint slower. I am going to the PC Live at Tamara's house. I don't get to go to Tennessee, but I do get to go to the one in Kentucky. Okay, so we've got our sign finished except for whatever words you want to put on it. And we'll just leave that to last. While we've got this khaki color out, well, let's wait until we do the wagon. Let me go by the instructions. Okay, so I'm going to skip the lettering on the sign because I don't know what you want to put on yours, but this is how, on your pattern, you just put whatever you want to put on there. And again, you can use a small liner brush or you can use a paint pen, whichever you're more comfortable with. Okay, so let's do next. Now we're going to start on the wagon. So let's base coat our wagon with one coat of white. And I'm going to do it with, I'm going to start out with my little angle brush. It's a 1/4 inch. And we're going to base coat it in white. And I think I've still got enough white here to go under that red. I'll start out with this, but then I will go to a smaller brush. Remember, tomorrow's tutorial is at noon, not 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, after tomorrow's live, I will download these on YouTube. So they will be there for longer than 30 days. They'll be there from now on. But I wanted to wait and download them together. Okay, so I'm going to round that wheel. The wheels are going to be black. Now you can do yours, her pattern on hers, she actually has, they look like wood wheels. But I'm doing mine black, like a red rider wagon. Okay, so just going around that. I had a little bit too much water in my brush, so I may need to do a second coat. Now I'm not going to do the inside of the wagon. I'm not going to do that yet until I paint some red on here so that I can tell where the lines go, where it needs to go. So I'll do that in a minute. This is just base coating it to help that red not have to have so many coats on it. Okay, I'm going to do the front. You've got this little back inside part between his foot and the terracotta pot is a little bitty triangle space of the inside, and then the inside on the right hand side of the handle, and then one on the left hand side of the handle. Tiny, tiny, but makes a difference. Okay, and I'll be able to tell where I need to shade that. Since our handle's going to be black, you could just paint right over it. And we'll come back over it with the black. Or you can paint around it. Okay, and I'm smoothing my paint out to go up and down. Or across either one, just so it's smoothed out. We don't need to base coat the wheels since they're going to be black. I have an even smaller angle brush that I might go in and use. Okay, so we've got our, just the outside base coat white. Now we're going to come back over it with the red. Let's dry it really good first. And I need to get some fresh red out. All right, we're getting a lot of the little details done. Okay, so I've got a really little, it's 1/8 inch angle brush, and I've also got a small 1/8 inch flat brush, and I use those for little bitty details, but I'm going to see how it works on this. The other one's a little bit large, The only thing, the smaller your brush, the more you're going to have to load it with paint. It is easier getting around those little bitty spots. And if you don't get your wheel exactly around it, remember we're going to come back in with black and we can round it up. You just want your lines to add up where the front and the back meets. Red is also a hard color to get out of your paintbrush when you're ready to wash them. I use just the hand soap that we use in the bathroom. And I always wash my brushes with soap after I completed a project or my painting session. I've got some brushes that I've had for over 30 years that I'm still using. I'm a pretty good brush mama and it has paid off. But I also have a weakness for buying brushes when I don't need any more. I can't resist a good brush sale. What's the one craft thing that you tend to buy too much of? I'm sure there's more than one, but what's the worst one or best one? Much easier with this smaller brush, but you may want to do it with a larger round if you don't have a brush this small. That would definitely work too. And we'll go ahead and get our shading done on this section so that we can see where the other part goes. Paintbrushes, yes. Sheila says she's supposed to go to PC Live, but I will have to drive, and my back is acting up again, and I don't know if I can drive it and still be functional. Oh, I hope it works out for you. Oh, Debbie, that's okay. Oh, you said you replied on Darla's thread. That's okay. That's all right. We're all in here to visit and, hi, Angela, have conversations. All right, let's put a second coat on it. Second coat will go quicker. So I'm going to have to wash this little brush really good, because that red is climbing up those bristles. That makes it easier. Mr. Pam didn't come in here and embarrass me and give me a smooch, but he did blow me a kiss. Or he held up the Cracker Barrel. That's what he did. I don't think he blew me a kiss. He thought he was going to be off Monday, but looks like he's going to have to work. Okay, so I'm going to do the back part. Sorry, I didn't mean to hold that tray over that if I was. Okay, so we've got it. All right, y'all. Y'all told me let him plant me a kiss. There. He's got some work to do at his desk, so. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, this one's easy to tell where that line's going to go, where the float line is going to go. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this one. It's just right there where that corner meets. Got a little bit behind last night because of all the issues with Mr. Facebook, so I was hoping to be a little further along than what we are right now. But I think I can get you to a point that you can do some homework. You didn't know you were going to have homework during this workshop, did you? I remember one of the ladies I did a workshop with, we had homework every night. And it was kind of fun just to be relaxed doing the homework and being ready for the next day. So I kind of enjoyed it. And remember that handle to the wagon is going to come down into this. So we'll go over it with black if you got it up into that handle any. And it might make it easier too for you to tell where okay, Mr. Pam's over here telling me he's been on a weight loss thing and he's lost 48 pounds, y'all. So proud of him. Woohoo! Let's try that. But like if, so you don't accidentally paint it, you could take where else the red's going to go. It's going to go right there by the pot. And then there's a little corner on the other side of the handle. I'm putting a dot of red there. Not a dot, just a little bit of paint in between his foot and the terracotta pot, and then that little triangle back there. And that will help me to remember to not forget to paint those inside. See where I put the little dots? Those are going to be red also. That's the inside of the wagon. Okay, so let's put a second coat. what I will do tomorrow, if for some reason we don't get finished in the 2-hour time frame, I will just get out and go back in on the page so it makes it a separate live, and we'll have plenty of time to finish it. But I think we'll be okay. But if not, that's the plan. Okay, so let's dry that, and then we're going to go in with our burnt umber. And shade all of those parts. Now right here on the wagon, right here where the wagon meets, that's where we're going to shade to come down there to separate the front from the back. So we'll shade that part, and then we'll have a little shade underneath where the handle is. Okay, so I'm just putting a little bit of moisture on there. I got some fresh burnt umber because mine was starting to dry out. And I'm just going to blend it a little bit on my palette. I'm going to go across the top. And remember, you could also do this in black. But this burnt umber does dry darker. Remember, on our heart over here. Just got my instructions wet. Go around his little hand. Across the back. Okay, go down the back end. Let it dry, and you can come back over it. I don't want to wait a minute before I do that little one because it'll just wipe off what I just did. Okay, we're going to come down this little line here that separates the front from the back. Now we'll go up over the wheels also. We can go ahead and do that, but you may have to come back over them if you go a little wide with your black when you're doing the wheels. But that'll be super easy to do. All right, I got that a little bit too wet. Back around this one. And I need that little bitty back part right there. I'm going to go over that one again. Okay, now I'm going to go over the front part. I think I need a little more red on that front. it's getting a little dry, so I'm going to dip just the tip of my brush back in that water a little bit. Tapped it off on my paper towel. I had some red on my finger. Got it on there. Now we need to go up the right side. Still got a little bit of moisture on the wagon, so it's shading just fine. Okay, and let's go across the top. I'll put a little bit of water on. That little bitty part right there. Okay, so we've got that part shaded out. Just look back over it, see if you need to darken any spots up. Okay, so let's take a round brush. I think would be your best bet to fill in these little areas with red. Okay, so this little triangle right back here. Go around his little arm. Okay, so that's the little back triangle right there just on the inside. And then we've got the little one right in between his foot and the flower pot. Kind of round it down around his little foot. And we've got the other side of the flower pot. Come right up next to it, right up next to that pot. Fill that in, and then we've got this tiny, tiny little spot right here. Okay, and I've got a little cleanup to do at the front of mine, but you should have that. All right, let me look at our list and see where we are. Now, I would take a pencil or a chalk pencil to put your words on to get them centered like you want them before you paint, or use a paint pen with that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is with black. We're going to base coat the wheels and the wagon handle. So let's see how wet my black still is. I think I need a little bit more out here. And then I think I'm going to skip to a different step for you to do some homework. Not much, not as much as you had last night. But let's do this. I'm using my round brush with that black. I'm going to go right up next to his little hand where the handle itself is. Go around the opening. There's some blue that's going to show through it. This little round brush has lost its point. Let me get a different one. Oh, much better. Okay, and then we're going to come down and do the handle. We'll put some little gray highlights on it before we're done. I do too. I love to paint on different surfaces. Mr. Pam knows not to leave things laying around long in a pile that he's not sure what he's going to do with, because I'll end up painting something on it. My first hat that I painted was one of his hats that he was thinking about giving to the Goodwill. Okay, now I've got that handle on there. I want to come under it with some of that burnt umber before my burnt umber dries, and put a little, almost a half U, to make it look like that handle is indented in there. So let me do it and then I'll show you. So just right under that handle, right up against the handle. Let's dry it, and I'm going to make it a little bit darker. Okay, so just right under that handle there with that burnt umber. All right, while we've got our black, let's go ahead and do the wheels. I'm going to go back to my angle brush. You could also use a pouncer if you have a pouncer this size, sponge pouncer. I'm just going around the inside of it. do the other one. And then don't forget you've got one, the front, that's the inside. And remember, you'd think that black should cover with one coat, but once it's dry, you sometimes have to come back over it with a second coat because you can see your undercoat. All right, almost got the wheels base coated. Okay, so we've got our wheels base coated. Let's dry that, and let's finish up with our slate gray tonight, and then I'm going to give you your homework. Slate gray is what I'm using. You can use gray sky. And we're going to shade, or you can line, whichever you prefer. So we're going to take, I'm going to use my Dippin' Dotty. You can use the, whatever you've been dotting with. And let's put a dot, not on this one that's in the front, not the front wheel, because that's the inside of it. We're going to do the outside right in the center. We're going to put a dot for the little hubcaps. Put a little more paint to make it a little larger. And I'm kind of making mine a little bigger so they're not perfectly round. That's okay. And then we're going to, on the inside, I'm going to turn it upside down because that's going to be a little bit easier. Get a little bit, not much, but just a little bit of water on it, on the inside one. And towards the bottom of the wheel, I'm going to load my brush to shade. And then I'm going to kind of wipe some of that off or blend it out. And I'm just going to make a little swoop down at the bottom, round. Let me do it and then show you. Okay, and then we're going to do that on the other ones. I've still got water in my brush, so I'm not going to add any more water. And again, you could do this with a liner brush if you didn't want to shade it. And I got that one a little wide. So I may come back with some black and tone it down a little bit. All right, we'll let that dry. Okay, now your homework is to take a round brush or a liner brush. I will probably use one of my little round brushes, and just take some white. I first said we weren't going to base coat them in white, but I think we will. Just put one coat of white on all the little flower hearts, even the ones in the flower pot. Just base coat them with white, and then just like we did the big heart, go over them with that Tuscan red. That's a few steps ahead, but we're going to go ahead and do that to save us some time tomorrow. So we're going to do white, and then that Tuscan red. My white's just about dried up. So be sure and get over your graphite line, your pattern line. So if you're painting with me tonight, that is your homework. Okay, so you're going to do each one in white, all the little hearts that are for the flowers. I would go through, do all of them white first, and then come back and do all of them in the red. And just like we shaded the large heart down at the bottom here, the little kind of V, that's what we're going to do after you get the Tuscan red on. You're going to just shade down at the bottom with that burnt umber. And I have, like I said, a small little bitty angle brush, but I also have a small, there we go, a small flat brush. If you don't have either one of those, take your round brush, flatten it out, and just water down the burnt umber a little bit and go down at the bottom of it like that. Okay, so does that make sense? You're going to finish out your wagon. And then once you've finished out the wagon and the wheels and the little handle that we just worked on, you're going to paint all your little heart flowers white and base coat those in white, making sure to cover up your little graphite lines. And then you're going to go over all of them in red. And let me show you the finished one that I've got here. So see all the little red flowers? That's what you're going to paint. All those little flowers. And that will get us, that'll put us ahead a little bit. Okay, so any questions from tonight? Is there anything that says, ouch, can you just make frequent stops so you can get out and stretch? Oh, I know. That back pain is no fun. I deal with that a lot myself. If you ever need a certain size, shape, image, etc. out of wood or acrylic, let me know. I have a small business and provide this type of thing to my customers. Great, 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 great. That's awesome. So that's good to know. Janelle's been here. She's been at a couple of my parties now. The one that I had, the paint party that I had here at my house. she was here. That's where I first met her. And then she came to another one. And so she's close enough by that she can do that. So I'm excited to get to learn what everybody does. And it's so much fun. So yes, and I can tell you anything Janelle does is high quality. So yes, it would be a good purchase. So if you have any questions, please send me an email or shoot me a message in Messenger, and I will check that for tonight to make sure if you have any questions, or first thing in the morning. Remember that we come back on at noon Central Standard Time, and then we'll go till about 2 o'clock, and we'll see if we can finish up. If you can get all these little flowers done, the teddy bear shouldn't take long because there's not a ton of details on him. He's so little. So he shouldn't take real long. But if we don't get finished in that 2-hour time tomorrow, I will get off and get back on to start a different live, and we'll finish it up that way. But you don't have to stay on there that long. You can go back and watch the replay. Tomorrow I will download all of the replays in my YouTube channel, and also they're in the other page. I'm copying them and putting them over there in the Penny's Lane workshop page, but they'll also be here on this page for 30 days. Now in YouTube, they'll be there from now on. So anyway, there you go. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned something. I know you're a little bit outside of your comfort zone right now, but that's what I wanted. Take your time tonight and work on it at your own pace. With the replay, you can pause it and wherever you need to catch up. And that'll be a little more relaxed for you, but you're going to love it. You're going to be so proud of yourself when you finish it. Okay, ladies, I'm going to go eat some of that good supper that Mr. Pam brought me. And by the way, those of you that are new, Mr. Pam is actually Mr. David, my husband of almost 51 years. It'll be 51 years next month, won't it? June 5th. June 5th, it'll be 51 years. He's my best friend, too. But shh, don't tell him that. All right. Good night, ladies. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.